What's up, coaster fans? Today I'll be counting down all of the RMCs in the United States. After my cross-country trip, I have ridden all of the RMCs in the country, so I can give you my first-hand, honest opinion of all of them. Let me first say that all 14 of these coasters are great rides and are in my top 50, so a low ranking is in no way a knock on any of these coasters. Bringing up the rear at number 14 is RailBlazer at California's Great America. I rode this the first day it was open to pass holders, and it was my first Raptor. After my first ride in row 6, I was a little underwhelmed, but a back row ride was insane. There were some great elements on this ride that provide great ejector airtime, but it does lose points for those over-the-shoulder harnesses. The airtime really flings your shoulders into them. At number 13 is the other Raptor, Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. For some reason, I enjoyed this more than RailBlazer. It could have been because the setting over the water or the terrific operations by the Six Flags operators who were whipping out those 3 trains with that moving station, which was definitely a stark contrast to the CGA operators who had just barely started to learn how to run their ride. But this literally has the same layout as RailBlazer, so it's pretty much the same. But for some reason, I did enjoy this one better. The lowest ranked traditional RMC comes in at number 12, and that is Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. This was the last RMC I needed to complete this list, and it took me a couple rides to realize that this really was an overrated ride. I knew the first drop would be great, I knew it would be a short ride, and both of those were definitely true. The thing I didn't expect was the roughness. It wasn't so rough to the point where it was painful, but it was hard to hold up the lap bar during those rough patches, and it resulted in me ending up stapled by the end of the ride. I would ride this thing all day as it has a great setting and fun elements, but I thought it was the weakest non-Raptor RMC. At number 11 is Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. This ride was the subject of a lot of memes after the POV came out, since it looked like Six Flags cheaped out on the layout. But once people rode it, it got rave reviews. And I really liked everything about this coaster. The drop, the reverse cobra roll, the famous wave turn, and it had ejector moments near the end of the ride, but it just loses points with me because it is very, very short. Number 10 is Goliath at Six Flags Great America. The story here is very similar to Twisted Cyclone. Great elements, but a short ride. Goliath gets the upper hand for its elements being a little better. For one, the drop is huge, and although it only has one real airtime moment after the drop, the dive loop and the zero-G stall are unique on a wooden coaster and are very fun. By the time you hit the brakes, you're out of breath because of how furious this ride is. Coming in at number 9 is Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This often gets tagged as the worst RMC, but when I finally got to Discovery Kingdom in 2018, I loved this ride. It's true that the layout is a lot different than other RMCs, starting with that twisted drop and focusing more on inversions than the airtime, but the airtime is definitely there and the length is solid. I came off this after a few rides confident that this is a top 20 coaster. The original RMC lands at number 8, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. This was RMC's first try at giving a coaster the Iron Horse treatment, and it shows in the sense that the layouts they create today are very different than that of New Texas Giant. The positives of this ride are that it's very long, has a great drop, and it has solid airtime. The negative is that it meanders around a little bit. It takes the elements pretty slowly and it focuses on overbanks more than airtime hills and inversions. But despite this, I love how long the ride is, and especially in the back, you get enough airtime to make this coaster near the top of my list. New Texas Giant's Texas neighbor is number 7, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This is another RMC that has significant pros and cons. The drop is one of the best ever, and the final dive off the quarry is one of the best airtime moments of all time. However, this is an extremely short ride that has serious pacing issues, mainly due to the quarry wall. After the great barrel roll, it has some small twisted airtime hills on top of that wall where the train really crawls before it finally dives off and into the tunnel. So despite the negatives, the great parts of this ride are so legendary that it more than makes up for it. Number 6 is a new for 2018 coaster, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. I had the pleasure of riding this 6 times in a row on a rainy Sunday morning in July, and this thing definitely focuses on airtime. Those triple camelbacks are airtime heaven, and the airtime just keeps on coming. One of the unique elements that Twisted Timbers features is the outward banked turnaround that provides some insane sustained lateral ejector air, and that was definitely a pleasant surprise. Now we're in top 5 territory, and we'll start with Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. I did not expect this coaster to be as great as it was. The sustained ejector airtime on this ride is insane, and there's a lot of it. Like Twisted Timbers, I also rode this 6 times in a row on a Sunday morning in July, and I walked away with my mind blown. This thing is just a crazy airtime machine. And number 4 is my home park RMC, Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I've ridden this probably around 100 times, and after riding all of the other RMCs out there, I really appreciate just how good this one is. It's a super long ride, mainly thanks to the 2 lift hills, which is really the only knock on this ride. It's a long lull between those 2 sides. The blue track and the green track are both simple out and back layouts, but every element is great, which is not the case with every RMC. I prefer the blue side for its terrific airtime, and although the green side rides a little more awkward, it has my favorite inversion of all time, which is the Top Gun stall. Motoring in at number 3 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. Because of its problems this summer, I was unable to get a ride in 2018, so all I have is that one ride in the first car, second row, on the 3rd day it was open to the public in 2016. That one ride blew me away, and I already had high expectations. It exceeded them. There was airtime where I didn't think airtime could exist. Even though I wanted the back but couldn't get it because of assigned seating, the front car ride was unbelievable. The ride feels short mainly because you don't spend much time on the lift hill, but this is another coaster where every element has the wow factor. Combine this with the great terrain setting in the hills, and you have a top 5 overall coaster. It's just a shame that they can't figure out the problem with the launched lift hill. My number 2 RMC is Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. Now this was my first RMC. I got on this 2 weeks after it opened before I had even gotten a chance to ride Twisted Colossus. I couldn't get enough of this coaster, and I got 11 rides on that first day. I was afraid I had overrated it a bit since it was my first RMC, but I got back to Six Flags New England in July, and I got 4 more rides to bolster its high ranking. It felt like it was running a little slow early in the morning, but I got an afternoon ride, and it made up for it. This is just a long ride that works in terrific inversions and airtime hills as it winds around itself in its small footprint. The length really puts this ahead of Lightning Rod, even though those 2 coasters are very, very close on this list. Finally, my number 1 RMC and my number 1 overall coaster is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This really is the perfect coaster. It has the height, the speed, the length, the inversions, and the airtime. It even has some amazing head choppers. The only thing that's not amazing is the cell phone policy. I got 2 rides on opening weekend and came back in July for 5 more amazing back row rides. This ride never ends, and it never stops flinging you out of your seat or flipping you upside down. It has my favorite moment on any coaster, which is the outward banked airtime hill that has you flying for about 5 seconds. If you've never been on this, believe the hype. It's hard to imagine anyone making a better coaster. So that's it. As of 2018, there is no RMC on US soil that I have not experienced. I hope to ride the 2 currently operating in Sweden and Mexico one day, or the 3 opening overseas next year. But we'll see. Let me know what you think of this list. Leave your comments below and be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all next time.